Hi, how's your dog doing? Okay, so Linus starts thinking about learning Mandarin. The first thing he does is tell all of his friends, that he's thinking about starting to learn it. After feeling so fulfilled from telling them, he never makes any progress. Marcus Aurelius immediately gets to work on a task, making significant progress before ever telling anybody else, showing them results instead of hopes and dreams. So, probably like how you have, I've experienced, telling people like, oh, I want to start learning this language or whatever, and I don't actually make progress. My classic example for just about every single mistake I've made with language learning is Latin. I would tell people, oh, I want to start learning, or oh, I'm really good at speaking already. I'd never actually make progress because I already felt, fulfilled and accomplished enough from just telling them instead of just, actually going out and doing the work. It essentially tricked me into just feeling like I had already done so much just by telling other people. So just think about it. You want to start doing something and you already say, oh, well, you tell all your friends, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start learning this language or this other language. But then you don't actually make progress because you already get that sense of like, oh, I've already done something. I've already told people, and setting goals is that's progress, right? Or telling people is progress, right? Because then they'll keep me accountable. But no, clearly not. So if you keep on doing this, you're just going to keep finding yourself just telling people about things that you're thinking about doing or that you want to do and not actually doing anything, and you're gonna end up living like a worse life because you won't actually be doing the things that you want to do. You're just gonna be telling people, oh, I've been thinking about it, oh, when the time's right. But eventually I confronted what I've been doing about this, and I kind of developed this thing which I'm gonna just call silent progress, which I know it's a stupid name, but it works. It describes it pretty accurately. So eventually, as I actually started to do this, I actually saw myself putting in the work that I need to do instead of just telling people. So eventually, you'll actually get to that point of genuine pride in yourself, not because you've told people things, but because you've actually done things that are meaningful to you and that are significant. Just think about that. You will have a lifetime full of things that you've actually done rather than one filled with things that you've wanted to do and hopes and dreams and regrets. So, one thing you can do right now is just sit here. You can just even pause the video and just sit and think about what you really want to do here. Like, what are your intentions for doing this? Where do you want to go with this? And also, why do you feel so compelled to tell people that you're thinking about it or that you want to do this thing instead of actually doing it? Why? Just 2 minutes. Just sit there and just think about it. 5 minutes if you really care. Hours if it's really, really meaningful to you. What you really want to do. Maybe you don't even want to do it because you just felt kind of conditioned into feeling this is what you should be doing. So you need to essentially just think of your own reasons for doing it rather than other reasons. Essentially, you need to focus on internal motivation instead of external motivation. The first thing we need to actually really discuss here is why we would do this in the first place. So I feel like this is decently obvious. Like, if you think about it for a second, it's because we get a sense of reward. We get I don't want to say the dopamine because I don't think that's technically correct. Scientifically speaking, it might be like serotonin, but the point is that you get the reward of having told people that you're going to do the things. You get the feeling like, oh yes, I did it. You get that feeling, and essentially when you tell people this kind of stuff, you don't actually go out and do it. You kind of get that feeling. Oh, I feel good because I told people about it. You kind of get that sense of oh, I'm making progress because I've told people, when you haven't. You get that reward from it. So as I was saying, when you you tell people this kind of stuff, you get that reward from it, and that automatically like lessens your willpower, even your motivation to go and do the thing. And this happens a lot, like a lot of the time, like just in your regular life, happens with a lot of things. It may happen with like your diet. Maybe you chose to eat like junk food instead of eating healthily because you got that sense of reward from it instead of just doing what you know will be better for you and like actually going and like doing the work. So I'm advocating like maybe like a like the dopamine detox, like the whole like, oh, change your mind in 24 hours, not that type of thing, but just like it's kind of like more of a long-term just reduction of like all these easy things that you can do to feel good with yourself. Like you should be working and like doing something. Like I'm not saying that you should like hate yourself if you don't like do stuff. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that like you should get this sense of accomplishment and reward only when you've actually done stuff rather than like when you're not doing things. So like for example with me, like I'm happy with myself. Like I like my like I'm happy with myself. But if I'm not working towards something I know is good for me, I will not be happy with what I'm doing. Like, do you see what I mean? Like, the things you do don't have to be you, but they inform so much of your life and what you're doing that to not feel accomplished about what you're doing with in your life is it's detrimental. So what we really need to focus on here is more of that like internal motivation to do it. Now again, the best thing I'll always tell you to do is discipline, because that that's where you're still gonna do it even when you really don't want to. That will always be the best thing you want. Honestly, to get started with something, you need that motivation. Like if you're not motivated to want to start doing something, you're not gonna have the discipline to do it because you won't have any reason to do it, you know? Since we're talking about language learning here, you might have the discipline to like work on a language every single day. You might have that discipline, but you don't have the motivation to start doing it if it's a language you don't like, for example. You kind of see what I'm getting at here. So motivation is definitely needed to like get started with something, to have that drive to do it. And when you tell people stuff, that drive is coming from other people, well, not even that, like the motivation to do the thing is kind of sapped out of you because you feel like you've already made some progress towards it just by telling people about it. Because for some reason, that I don't know why we do that, and maybe that could be something I could talk about later, or maybe I could figure it out right now, like why do we get that sense of accomplishment from telling other people? Okay, I think it's because like as human beings, as inherently social creatures, we get a lot of like that social validation from telling people that we want to start doing something. Why that makes us feel accomplished is because um, if I recall correctly from a book I'm still working through but right now, but The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt, I believe it's that like we care a lot more about appearances than we do like actually doing stuff. So like for example, and like in his book, we care a lot more about appearing to be moral individuals than we care about like actually being that. Like that might seem like rather obvious, like yeah, obviously you want the appearance of it and everyone does it all the time. But even just telling people that you want to start thinking about doing something keeps it also, it already gives off that appearance of already possessing the thing. So you get the feeling that because I have this appearance, I must in some way kind of be that thing. So if you keep up the appearance, so like for example, the morality example, if you keep up the appearance of being like a moral, good person, you're going to believe yourself to be that. You kind of see what I mean? So if you view yourself as the kind of person who already is like good at language learning just from telling people, then you might not actually want to do it. That makes sense. I know that kind of contradicts the whole like affirmations thing that I talk about, but that's a little different because with that, you're telling yourself, I am blank, not from the perspective of feeling a sense of accomplishment, but it's more from the perspective of, I am this. What would this person do in my situation? I'm a language learner. What would a language learner do? That's like kind of the perspective that you go from there. It's like to essentially just get into that mindset. Whereas where you tell people things, you just feel that sense of accomplishment. You're not actually in that mindset of how can I work towards this goal. I really hope I'm making sense here, like especially with the difference between like the affirmations and this and telling people things and getting that sense of accomplishment. I really hope I'm like making sense here that like with affirmations, it's about getting into the mindset of doing what needs to be done because you have this perspective. It's more like a perspective. Like you're looking from the perspective of somebody who is that thing. Whereas with this, you're focused on like, oh, I have the appearance of this thing, so I must already have some kind of accomplishment in it, if that makes sense. So that's why telling people these kinds of things, especially, I'm gonna get to that in a moment, but just telling random people this kind of stuff, that's why it keeps like you have to keep up that you you have that appearance, and especially if they're people you don't talk to like that often, they don't see you every day, they're not like interacting with you, especially not in that environment, then especially it's really easy to just have that appearance and not actually put in the work. Now maybe you might be thinking, um, well, I need to tell people my goals and whatnot to stay motivated, to have that like pressure on you. And that is true, but it should be people who you're doing it with or who are in a similar space as you, if that makes sense. So like for example, don't tell like your family that you want to start learning languages. Tell like the friends who are also into language learning, because then they'll actually work to help you and make sure that you're making progress on that. If that, like, you see what I'm going with here? Like, they're gonna actually help to make you accountable. And also, another difference is that when you're just telling people this kind of stuff, it's normally like intentions, like, oh, I'm thinking about it, I want to. But if you tell your friends who will do the same thing and you give them a specific goal, like I want to get to a B2 level in Arabic by in the next year, that's a specific goal that you're telling to people who can actually help you make progress, instead of giving the vague idea of, oh, I want to start learning Arabic, I'm thinking about it, and telling that to like some random person that you meet. And I have experienced this myself. When I tell people who aren't Latin speakers, like when I used to tell people who weren't Latin speakers, like, oh yeah, I can speak in Latin, yeah. I made way less progress than when I talked to people who actually could speak in Latin, because then I had to actually put in the work. That is helpful. Telling people who are in that space and giving them specific goals to work with, that is helpful. I'm not saying it's the only way you should get that motivation. I do think you should develop it. I do think you should develop the motivation like intrinsically, but that's actually like a good strategy. Telling your friends who aren't interested in it that you want to do it is not helpful. Giving them the vague idea, because then they can't help you. They can't do anything. You're just doing it for an appearance of, I'm doing this thing. So one more thing we can do right now is just write down a specific goal that you want to have in your language learning journey. Like maybe you want to get to like a C1 level in X language in the next year, 2 years, whatever. Depends on what you want to do, whatever. Or I want to be able to carry a conversation on this topic with a native speaker who speaks this language by this time. Doesn't matter. Or I want to be able to only use this language when I'm in a country where this language is spoken, and only use that language and don't use English or my native language. Unless like you want to learn English, in which case obviously use English. But so yeah, write that down on paper and put that on your wall. If you don't do this, you have if you don't do this, you have instantly just made less progress than if you had done it. Like take like a pen, marker, whatever, write down the goal, like hopefully large enough, and put it on your wall. Tape it to your wall on paper. Don't type it on the computer. Don't put it on your phone unless it's going to be like your lock screen or something, which that's actually helpful. I do that. I have my schedule as my lock screen. But just write it down and put it on your wall. Or at the very least, if you're gonna not listen and put it on your phone or your laptop, make it like the background that's always in your face when you use it and you can't avoid it. Because you need to be able to just sit there and like look at like just looking at the words and really thinking about it. Like that's what's really gonna help you get there. You're gonna really start thinking about it. Like let's say my goal was somehow to get 10 million subscribers in the next year. That's really unlikely, but if I just sat there and thought about it, I'd actually like start thinking. I'd start getting the gears turning. Like, okay, this is how I can. Maybe this is how I can get started to get to this point, and whatnot. Again, if you don't do this, and you just don't listen, you just keep on watching, you have instantly just made less progress. I can almost guarantee that. Okay, so considering what we've just talked about, what's actually like the steps that you can take to actually implement what we've talked about here? So first off is setting clear goals and like create like an actual plan to go through it. Like don't just say, "Oh, I want to learn this language." Say, "I want to get to this level in this language by around this time by doing blank, by studying for an hour every day, by talking to native speakers twice a week, whatever, something like that." You need a specific plan, and it should be something that like you can keep track of. If you can't keep track of it, that's not as helpful. Again, analogy with like working out and stuff. If you're not tracking like the reps and sets that you're doing, you're not going to make progress because you won't know what you've been doing. So you need to have some way of like keeping track of that and like how much you've been doing and how much you've actually been sticking to this. And how you can do that is, well, at least in this, because you're trying to like make it like a habit to actually like consistently do it, is to make a habit tracker, which I talk about a lot. Again, just tick it off. If you haven't done it, don't just tick the box to make yourself feel good. The whole point is that you have to sit with that pain of not ticking the box, and that's going to actually like make you want to make it more of a habit. Next is just generally to try and develop that intrinsic motivation more so than the external one. Again, the other one is good, like the one where you're telling people who are actually like involved in it. That's still good, but it should mostly be from what you want. Think about what you want to get out of this, how it can benefit you. I was thinking like in a selfish way. Just think about why you want to do this, not why other people want you to do this. If you want to learn Indonesian because you really like its grammar, that's a great reason. Go ahead. Don't just learn it because don't just learn it because Indonesia's a highly populated country. Don't just do that. Find your reasons for doing it, just to keep in mind. Again, this is just to get you started. You're gonna need discipline to continue to do it every single day, but you do need motivation to get started and to really enjoy doing it. And then with the habit tracker can really help with this, is to try and help develop like self accountability, so that way like you are working to keep yourself consistent. That's really helpful. And then you also need to like, yeah, so essentially just working to keep yourself consistent and regularly tracking your progress. And as I have discussed multiple times through this, mention specific goals to people who are actually involved in the thing that you want to get better at, so that they can help you, help to keep you accountable, help to keep you on track, give you any tips or whatever, rather than telling people who aren't interested, your family, the friends who don't care, random people on the street. And through all of this, you should hopefully be able to like make this into a habit and consistently get better and actually make the progress. So then you can tell people, once you said, instead of telling people, oh, I want to, I kind of want to learn Italian, you can tell people, yeah, I'm at a C2 level in Italian. I've written academic papers in Italian or something. That's like even just being able to say that will be a lot more rewarding than just saying, yeah, I'm thinking about learning it. So even if all this hasn't resonated with you, just that alone, that you'll feel a lot more rewarded just by saying that you've actually done the thing. Yeah, that should be enough of a motivation for you to want to like really do it. So if you really need help staying accountable, you really think that I could like help you with that, I still offer my coaching calls for Kipona, Polyglotism, and Plymothy. Slots are still open. Take ones that you like. We can negotiate. You can like negotiate a specific time or day. You're paying for the session, not the specific time slot. So if you need to change it, change it. Yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of changing it to help keep you more accountable rather than giving specific information. So we can do that through like messages, or like really working to like help you stay more accountable with yourself. Whatever you need, we'll work on that. And also we can just work together to like help you become more productive and efficient at it as well. And if you're interested in language learning, or you just want to learn Tokipona, you want to get started with either of those journeys, I have 25 Tokipona words and phrases down in the description. It's free PDF. You can just go down there and get it. So yeah, I don't really have much else to say. So tell your dogs to tie.